Hello my fellow Mario Kart enjoyers. Let's talk about Motion Glider in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. For those of you who don't know, Motion Glider is a technique used to gain a lot of extra mobility and speed while in the air, and it allows you to do some pretty ridiculous stuff. The problem is that it can be quite difficult to perform, especially in online matches. The way that Motion Glider works is by enabling motion controls and simultaneously tilting the controller and holding the left control stick in a direction while gliding, which effectively results in the inputs doubling. This input stacking is likely not an intentional feature, and the way that motion controls were probably expected to be used is that you would turn them on, leave them on, and steer only using tilt controls for the entire race. However, you can turn them on and off mid-race. Because of this, the way that Motion Glider is usually performed is by pausing the game while in air, switching motion controls on, unpausing, flying for a bit, and then pausing again and turning it back off. Sounds like a hassle, right? Well, kinda. This is not a huge issue in time trials since the game stops while you're paused, but in online, the game doesn't stop. So you have to be very quick about performing these inputs, and many people remap their controller to make these inputs easier to do. Now, have you ever found yourself thinking,
and I would love it if instead of having to use the motionness of the Pro Controller, we could just have it so that could be implemented with the other joystick or something like that?
Well, today, I'm here to tell you about the "or something like that" part. So there's a few seemingly useless features in the control scheme of Mario Kart 8. First, you can use the right control stick to accelerate and reverse. This one isn't just seemingly useless, it's actually useless. But there's one more feature you might not know about. You can use the D-pad to steer the same way as you could steer with the left control stick. Now, aside from allowing SNES enthusiasts to use their favorite controller for Mario Kart 8, this seems kinda useless, right? Wrong. Turns out, for whatever reason, if you have motion controls enabled, using both the left control stick and the D-pad simultaneously will stack the inputs. This isn't really helpful when driving on the ground, partially because it doesn't really allow you to steer any tighter or provide any other noteworthy benefit, but mainly because you need to use both hands on the left side of the controller, which makes it a little hard to hold the accelerator button. However, in the air, it allows you to reach almost the full range of mobility that motion gliding usually allows for. I'm going to refer to this technique as hypergliding, since superglider is already a thing. So here's some examples of what hypergliding looks like, and keep in mind that all of this is done without needing to tilt the controller at all. Alright, so now we know that we can fly around like a lunatic. How do we actually do it? Well, first of all, it's not as simple as just hold right or left on both the control stick and the D-pad at the same time for double the input. To maximize the effect of input stacking, the D-pad actually needs to be pressed in a diagonal direction, and the stick needs to be held at the same 45-degree angle as the D-pad. And obviously to do this, you have to use both hands on the left side of the controller. This is fine while gliding because you don't need to hold the accelerator button, but it does take a little bit to get used to switching your hands around. Second, you still need to have motion controls enabled for this to work, which means that you would either have to go through the rigmarole of turning it on and then off every time you want to use it, or you would just have to leave it on all the time and try and keep your controller steady. Or so it would seem, but we can also solve this problem. Allow me to introduce the GameCube controller. Adapter sold separately. That's right, people. The GameCube controller doesn't have one of those pesky gyro sensors in it, and you can still enable motion controls while using it. It just won't do anything. Which means that we now have a convenient way to leave motion controls on at all times without it affecting gameplay, allowing us to use this input stacking technique at any time. Here's a demonstration of what the controller inputs look like while hypergliding. So now that we know how to do this, let's get into what you can do with this. In general, hypergliding is a bit faster than gliding normally, which is why so many time trial world records use it, even on straightaways. The additional mobility also allows you to move in more directions that would otherwise not be possible, which opens up a few new shortcuts. Here's a few ideas of what you could do with it. You can use it to recover more easily from dangerous situations. You can use it to go fast. Use it to stall and avoid blue shells. Use it to catch a train when you're late for work. You can use it to do whatever this is. But basically, anything you see in time trial records you could try to mimic with varying levels of success. Just get creative and have fun with it. But wait, there's more! What if I also told you that there is a way to hyperglide without having to use the D-pad? Well, you're in luck because I'm about to tell you exactly that. For some reason, if you reboot your system and never activate a controller with a gyro sensor, the input stacking will be applied just by using the left control stick on the GameCube controller. So now you can ignore the D-pad and fly using the same inputs as you normally would. The same condition from before applies, meaning that you still have to hold the stick at a 45-degree angle to maximize the range of motion, but there's also some downsides to doing it this way. Using this method, the input stacking is always active, even when driving on the ground. This makes it a bit harder to charge mini turbos quickly at a shallow angle, and in general just makes the handling feel a bit different. Maybe this is useful for driving on 200cc, but probably not. It can also make normal gliding feel oversensitive, since it's easier to reach a steep angle by tilting the control stick just a little bit. The main reason why this feature is even noteworthy is because it's easy to have it accidentally enabled without even knowing about it. If you want to prevent this effect from happening, just start a race while using a controller with a gyro sensor, and then quit. After a gyro controller has been used even once, the effect will be disabled until the console is rebooted. But that's basically all there is to it. So now that you're armed with this forbidden knowledge, you can get out there and stomp the competition. Or maybe get stomped by the competition. Because it is Mario Kart after all. Anyways, until next time, goodbye.